Today we're going to begin talking about the muscular system since it goes and works so closely with the skeletal system that we've been covering. You've got three different kinds of muscle in your body, but as far as movement for your body and how that relates to your skeletal system, you have skeletal muscles that allow your skeleton to move and then therefore let your body move around. Our bodies have more than 600 individual muscles. And your muscles cause both bones and organs to move by alternating between contracting and relaxing. So bones attached to muscles, muscles attached to bones will allow your bones and then your body to move. Organs that have muscles in the walls of them will let those organs move contents through them, such as your stomach and your intestines. Continuing on with that, we have three types of muscle. We have cardiac muscle, skeletal muscle, and smooth muscle. Your cardiac muscle is striated, meaning that it has kind of stripes on it that you can see in the picture here. And it's involuntary, so it's actually not able to be controlled consciously, so your heart muscle contracts without you having to think about it. For skeletal muscle, that is also striated or striped, so you can see that there. And it is voluntary, so you have to consciously make your skeletal muscles move. Next, we have smooth muscle that is non-striated, so it does not have those bands or stripes on it, and that also is involuntary, so that is not under conscious control either, meaning they work without you having to think about them. If we look at smooth muscle first, it's found in the walls of organs throughout your body. And it is involuntary again, meaning that your movements of that muscle are controlled by your autonomic nervous system. So they happen again without you having to consciously think about them working. An example would be a process called peristalsis, which is wave-like muscle contractions, and that happens throughout your digestive organs to allow food to move through them. For cardiac muscle, the only place you have that in your body is in the heart. It is under involuntary action, meaning, again, you do not need to think about it working for it to contract. And your cardiac cells have a branched appearance to them, so you can kind of see how they have little branches coming off of them where they connect. Those are called intercalated discs. We'll talk more about that when we do the cardiovascular system. And lastly, we have skeletal muscle. Usually when people think of muscle, it's skeletal muscles that you're thinking of. They will attach to bones through cord-like structures called tendons. And your skeletal muscles function through voluntary signals from your nervous system that allow your bones to, again, move because your muscles are contracting or relaxing in pairs to allow that bone to be moved and then allow your body to move. Your skeletal muscle tissue is made up of long cells called muscle fibers, and again, they have a striped appearance to them. If we look at the anatomy of skeletal muscle, you can see here there are some things for you to fill in on your notes. They are in red boxes here, so you know what to fill in. If we start with an entire muscle, we break that down into smaller groupings called fascicles. And then each of those can be broken down into individual muscle cells called muscle fibers. Within those muscle fibers, we have myofibrils, which you can see here. It's number 4 on your paper, or not your paper actually, but on your notes document. And there are thin and thick filaments called myofilaments within the myofibril. The actual unit of a skeletal muscle that will contract is called a sarcomere. And there are many sarcomeres. They run one right next to the other down the whole length of the myofibril. And they will shorten and lengthen to allow movement to happen or allow that muscle to contract. The way the sarcomere is organized is made up of both thick and thin filaments that I mentioned earlier. The thick filaments are referred to as myosin, and the thin filaments are actin, and they alternate one right after the other. The myosin and actin overlap each other, and it's kind of like if you thought about if you were holding a rope and you put one hand over the other and pulled the rope closer to you, that's kind of how your muscles or the sarcomeres in your muscles will shorten. And then that would kind of let go and they would go back to where they were. See if this will play. So you can see, of course, we have a nice little ad. Sorry. Oh, good. It's going to skip the ad for me. So this will be so you can see how this would actually work in your muscles.
When muscle contracts, individual muscle fibers shorten as a result of changes in individual sarcomeres. When the myosin cross bridges are activated, they bind with actin, resulting in a conformational change in the cross bridge, which causes the myosin head to tilt and to drag the thin filament toward the center of the sarcomere. During this sliding contraction, the thin filaments move toward the center of the sarcomere and protrude into the H zone, ultimately overlapping. Because sarcomeres are joined end to end, as the sarcomere shortens, the myofibrils shorten, and muscle fibers within a fascicle shorten, resulting in an organized muscle contraction.
Okay, so hopefully that let you just kind of see how that muscle would shorten and lengthen again when it relaxes. If we come back to our notes. If we look at the functions of muscle, that's going to be the physiology of muscle, how they actually work. Your muscles have the ability to contract, and then that lets them perform different functions. So those functions include movement, stability, control of body openings and passages, and heat production. So movement, you would probably think that really just refers to your body as a whole moving, but it also refers to things inside of your body moving. Stability helps you maintain your posture, and then the body openings and passages have like ring-like muscles that act like valves that will control the passage of materials from one part of your body to the next, such as from your stomach on into your small intestine. And then for heat production, if you think about when you are cold, you shiver, and that is muscle contractions helping you produce heat from your food energy to warm up your body. So if we first look at the functions for muscles as far as movement, your skeletal muscles are attached by to bones by tendons, and your muscles will cross over joints so that when your muscles contract, the bones that they're attached to will move. For movement and smooth muscle, we find it in the walls of hollow organs, and when they contract, it helps move the contents of those organs through your body. Finally, with cardiac muscle and movement, you have chambers in your heart, which are open spaces where the blood is inside of your heart. And the muscle that's in the walls of your heart will produce those or make those chambers contract to help pump blood from the heart out into your blood vessels. For stability, your muscles help hold your bones together and they help stabilize joints. And then you also have small muscles along your vertebrae, your backbone, that help to stabilize your spinal column. For controlling body openings and passages, that ring-like, valve-like muscle structure that I talked about is called a sphincter, and that controls the movement of substances both in and out of passages. An example is the urethral sphincter. Your urethra is going to be how urine leaves your bladder and exits your body. So that sphincter, that ring-like muscle that's there, will help control urination. For heat production, when your muscles contract, heat is going to be released, and it's going to help to maintain your normal body temperature. So if you are cold and you get up and move around, it's going to help to make you warmer. To kind of summarize this, for skeletal muscle, the major location is found attached to your bones and the skin of your face. The major function is to produce your body movements and facial expressions. and it is voluntary, under voluntary control. It's the only kind of muscle that is voluntary, and 90% of your muscles in your body are skeletal muscles. For smooth muscle, we again find those in the walls of hollow organs, your blood vessels, and the iris of your eye. With your eye, it helps control how much light enters your eye to allow you to see. So that will expand and dilate if you have you're in low light to let more light in. If you're in bright light, it will constrict to allow less light in. That's going to move contents through your organs and cause vasoconstriction, or your blood vessels to contract so that it pushes your blood through. That is involuntary control, and it's not on here, but it's about 7% of your muscle in your body. For cardiac muscle, we find that in the walls of your heart. It helps to pump blood through your heart and then out of the heart into your blood vessels. It is also involuntary, and it's 3% of your muscle. If we look at some other structures associated with muscles, we have connective tissue coverings. So we have the fascia, and that's going to cover the entire skeletal muscle and separates them from each other. A tendon, which you can see this whitish looking part here, is a tough cord-like structure, and it's going to connect a muscle to a bone. And then an aponeurosis is going to allow muscles to attach to each other, and it's kind of just like a sheet-like structure. It's pretty tough, and again, it holds one muscle to another if they're neighboring muscles. Okay, so here we can see those. Tendon holds the muscle to the bone. Ligaments join bone to bone. And then aponeuroses are sheet-like structures, so we can see that here in the lower back. They allow muscles to attach to each other. For actions or attachments and actions of your skeletal muscles, your muscles work in pairs. And the action is going to really depend on what the muscle is attached to. There are different attachment sites. There's an origin and insertion for each muscle. The origin is where the muscle is attached to a bone, but it's the less movable bone. And the insertion is where the muscle attaches to the more movable bone. So up here, where your biceps brachii is attached, this would be the origin, and down here it would be the insertion, because when the muscle contracts, it pulls your forearm bones up towards your humerus. As far as body movements, we have flexion, so bending a body part, such as if you pointed your toes. Extension would be straightening it. Hyperextension can cause injuries, and that is extending a body part beyond the normal anatomical position. Dorsiflexion is pointing your toes upwards, so if you pulled your toes up towards your shin. Plantar flexion is pointing your toes down. Abduction is moving a body part away from anatomical position, so if you had your arm at your side and you raised it up to, so your hand was at shoulder level, that would be abduction. And then putting your arm back next to your side would be adduction, moving it back towards the anatomical position. For circumduction, it's moving a body part in a circle. Pronation is turning your palm downward. Supination is the palm of the hand up. Elevation is lifting it, so if you like shrugged your shoulders and lifted them up towards your ears, that's elevation. If you put them back down, that would be depression. Muscle strains and sprains, they are injuries. A strain is due to overstretched muscles or tendons, so it's really common to have in your ankles, your knees, or your wrists. Sprains are the more serious of the two because they can result in tears to the ligaments or cartilage of your joints, so it takes them a lot longer to heal. We have those common in our lower backs and our hamstrings. And then the recommended treatment for either of them is an acronym RICE, and that means rest, so don't use it. Ice, put ice on it. Compression, wrap it with a bandage or wear a brace. And elevation, and that would help reduce swelling. A way to prevent those is to warm up your muscles, to take a few minutes before any intense activity to raise the temperature of your muscles and make them more flexible. Stretching should be done after you've warmed up or after you've exercised, and then cooling down or slowing down before completely stopping helps keep your blood pooling and keeps lactic acid from building up so you don't get muscle cramps. And then lastly, we have aging and the musculoskeletal system. So the older you become, the contractions of your muscles become slower and not as strong. So your dexterity and your gripping ability decrease. Your mobility also may decrease. So as people get older, they sometimes find assistive devices like canes or walkers helpful. Things you can do are routine exercise, such as swimming, because that takes the like pressure and stress off of your joints, makes it easier for you to move. And you can also go for physical therapy. The last thing here, we're not going to talk right now about diseases of the muscular system. You'll have an opportunity later in the week to look at those.